Hello and welcome into episode 2 of Snakes Territory. My name is Jesse Friedman, back here for our second ever episode. As always, joined by the one and only Jack Summers, who covers the Diamondbacks over at Arizona Diamondbacks on SI. Jack, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm in the Big Easy in New Orleans and having a real good time. I went out in a swamp boat yesterday and almost got ate by an alligator, but so after dealing with snakes, now we got to deal with alligators.
I can't say that riding around in a swamp and saying hello to alligators is exactly like my definition of a good time, but I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. Well, hey, we have some Arizona Diamondbacks baseball to talk about. They just completed their 3-game series out in the Bronx against the New York Yankees, and they were unable to win the final game of the series. They ultimately take 2 out of 3. We have some details here on the screen as the Diamondbacks dropped the finale by a final score of 9-7. Jack, they did make things pretty interesting here in the finale. A 9-3 deficit turned to 9-7 late in this one as Geraldo Perdomo somehow managed to hit a grand slam as a right-handed hitter, the first time he has ever hit a home run in his career from the right side. That was kind of a fun moment, but the Diamondbacks ultimately fall short. I guess ultimately, Jack, even though the Diamondbacks lost the finale of the series, hard to be too upset about winning 2 out of 3 in the Bronx.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a funny feeling. If you win the first game and the third game of a three-game series, oh, we won the series. You win the first two, you want more. You get greedy. You're looking for the sweep. And it's a little tough to lose that third game. It just feels a little different. They almost came back tonight. Um, the home run to right field, I mean, of course, it had to be Yankee Stadium that Perdomo gets his first right-handed home run. So that's something.
It was an opposite field shot, which I guess we have to give some credit for Geraldo Perdomo showing off some opposite field power there. It was an impressive swing. You're right that it did require the short porch in right field at Yankee Stadium in order to make it happen. But I guess Merrill Kelly was sort of the big story in this game from the Diamondback standpoint. He was pretty darn good in his first outing of the season against the Cubs. Only allowed 1 run in that game. But tonight, Jack, 3 2/3 innings, 9 hits, 9 runs allowed, 3 walks, 2 strikeouts. Obviously, Aaron Judge got him pretty early in this one with a 3-run home run in that first inning. And Merrill just never really looked comfortable in this game and was really having a hard time. I guess the command for someone like him certainly needs to be sharp in order to be successful. And tonight it just wasn't quite that.
I should have believed him after his last start. I asked him, I said, I thought you looked a little sharper than the pitching line because he had 4 walks versus 1 strikeout last time out. But tonight he really wasn't sharp. The location was not there. He was not able to put the ball where he wanted to. And he got burned. I mean, he gave up 3 home runs. He gave up 9 runs and all, as you can see. It was a really rough outing for him. And every time he missed a location, he got hurt with it.
Diamondbacks defense didn't exactly do him any favors, especially in that first inning. There was a what appeared to be a pretty catchable fly ball out to Alec Thomas in center field. He wasn't able to make the play there, and then after the Aaron Judge home run, the Yankees tacked on another run on a deep fly ball to left field that it looked like Lourdes Gurriel might have had a shot to make that play. It ultimately bounced off his glove. The Yankees grab another run there. So with this Diamondbacks offense, you kind of feel like they're never really out of a game, right? And sure enough, in this one, they managed to still put 7 runs up on the scoreboard. The offense has been as advertised so far, but yeah, ultimately the D-backs fall short. As you said, it does feel pretty different to lose the finale of a series. Feel like you're riding high when you take the rubber match. You win 2 out of 3. This one has a bit of a downer feel maybe after the Diamondbacks won the first 2 games, but ultimately a pretty much fine outcome in New York. The Yankees are a good team. Taking 2 out of 3 there is an outcome you'll take every time. Carlos Carrasco, Jack, I guess in our last show, we talked about how somehow Carlos Carrasco is still pitching. And tonight, I guess he kind of showed us why. 5 1/3 innings, 5 hits, 3 runs from him. The Diamondbacks, they did wind up putting some runs up on the board eventually, but Carrasco was able to hold his own and I guess he gets the win. He gets the win for an outing that was ultimately pretty good.
His stuff looked pretty good. I mean, he was getting a lot of sink on the ball. He's keeping it down. That's what he does, right? When he's successful, that sinker just moves it down and away from the guys, and he was very effective. 38 years old, ho hum.
And he's also just an incredible story. Some of the things that he's gone through from a health standpoint to be pitching in the majors at all at
Right.
this point. For anyone to be pitching in the majors at that age is impressive. For him in particular, really, really cool story there. Josh Naylor went 2 for 3 in the game today with a double and a walk. He continues to stay hot offensively, but other than that, not much else to speak of in the finale of this one. Moving on to the series as a whole, some guy named Zac Gallen sort of went off in the second game of this series. Jack, 6 2/3 innings, 3 hits, no runs, 13 strikeouts. And I think if any one player was sort of the central storyline of this series in New York, Zac Gallen is that guy. We talked about his outing to open the season on opening day. He was not sharp, but he was about as good as we've ever seen in that game last night.
That was peak Zach Gallen. I mean, that's exactly what everyone hopes to see when he pitches like that. He had his fastball command, which we harped on so much, but it wasn't just that. I mean, that curveball was just phenomenal. I've had tremendous amount of swing and miss all night long. I think he had 24 whiffs in the game. It was just a tremendous performance.
Gino Suarez also hit the big grand slam in the first game of the series. I guess that was sort of the other big standout performance from the 3 games in New York. Gino just continues to do his thing. I think he finished the series 2 for 10, but when one of your 2 hits is a grand slam that ultimately turns what would have been a tough loss into a win, that was pretty impressive. But yeah, going back to Gallen, we talked about in our last show how Gallen just hasn't quite looked the part of a true frontline ace caliber starter, at least not on a consistent basis for a while. And yeah, I mean, talk about showing up and looking every bit like that guy. You also definitely saw him get what should have been his 14th strikeout of the game toward the end of his outing. You could see him in the dugout. I know they played this on the broadcast today. Gallen's reaction to rewatching that check swing, which was pretty clearly not a check swing, at least watching the replay afterwards. I don't think Gallen was too happy about that. So he didn't set his career high in strikeouts, which would have been 14, but he did still manage to tie it with 13. And I did a little bit of research on this last night, and this was the first time since September of 2023 where Gallen has gone more than 6 innings in a scoreless outing. He's had a number of scoreless outings over the last year plus, but this was the first time he's gone more than 6 innings and not allowed a run since his complete game shutout against the Cubs that a lot of people probably remember down the stretch in 2023, a really, really big game that they needed from him during that postseason run. So yeah, as you said from the top, Jack, this was peak Zac Gallen, no doubt about it.
Something pretty funny. Somebody on X asked me, "Oh, do you think that seeing everybody get extended and maybe wanting to get an extension himself has motivated him for the outing?" And of course, I said, "No. That's the last thing that he's thinking about. He's thinking about his start and what he's got to do to prepare for it, and the hitters and how he's going to attack them." But if he was pitching with maybe just a little bit of an edge, it might have been to silence some of the critics that have been out there, me included. I mean, I've been somewhat critical of the inability to command that fastball and get deeper into games. I don't think I'm alone in that. So it was great to see him shut us up. I mean, that's what you want to see. An athlete go back to hitting on all cylinders. It's fabulous to watch when he does it.
In our last show, we talked about how this series was a chance to sort of see the big 3 in the Diamondbacks rotation for the first time, right? You had Corbin Burnes, Zac Gallen, Merrill Kelly lined up. And for as good as Zac Gallen was, frankly, the other 2, not so much. We already talked about Merrill Kelly and his rough outing today. Corbin Burnes, in his Diamondbacks debut on Tuesday, he wasn't terrible. He held his own. He had 8 strikeouts. I think he probably pitched better than the final line would lead you to believe. But Four and a third innings, 4 hits, 4 runs, 2 of them earned. The 8 strikeouts I mentioned earlier, he had 3 walks. How'd you feel about Corbin Burnes in his D-backs debut?
He really pitched better than the 4 runs showed. I mean, he was victimized by bad play by Josh Naylor on a what should have been a routine flip to the pitcher at first base, and he just airmailed it over his head, and that cost him a couple runs and cost him pitches, and I think it was 96 pitches through 4 1/3. I mean, he labored in that regard. He just nothing seemed to go smoothly. It was all a little bit out of rhythm. But he'll be fine. Like you said, 8 strikeouts. Some of those were pretty impressive. I'm not too worried about him. I think he'll be fine going forward.
That was a brutal error on the part of Josh Naylor. Something we've seen Josh Naylor frankly look a little shaky at first base at times. And granted, part of that is probably that we're used to watching Christian Walker play first base, right? Which not every first baseman in baseball is up to that standard. No one is. Christian Walker is sort of in a class of his own, but. I am curious, Jack. Like I don't think it's too unreasonable to wonder if at some point, not super soon necessarily, but we know how much Torey Lovello cares about defense. Do you think that at some point, if the struggles with Josh Naylor continue, that maybe the Diamondbacks would look at going to a Pavin Smith at first base, who is not necessarily an elite defender by any means over there, but if Naylor continues to struggle, maybe that's something that the D-backs would consider.
They could flip that around. Knowing Tory, it would probably start off as, oh, it's just a game or two and see what happens. And the next time he gets back out there, if he's over whatever problems he's having and he's not making any more mistakes, it becomes a little bit like last year when we thought he was benching Gino, but it turned out it was just a game or two where he gave Blaze Alexander a shot at third base. That's more than likely what we'll probably see. It's hard to imagine that they're going to make a wholesale switch. And certainly we're overreacting to a couple of rough plays early in the season. It's all relative.
Right.
But if it, like you said, if it continues, if this problem becomes a trend, then that's very possible. They may flip flop them.
I guess defense has really been just kind of a trend the whole year for the D-backs so far. And granted, the whole year consists of 7 games, so we're talking about a very small sample size of baseball here. You have to keep that in mind. But it has been odd, right? Like as we talked about in the last show, the Diamondbacks have been branded on playing really good defense for quite some time. And that just isn't really the team that we've seen show up in 2025. You could make a case, Jack, that all 3 of the games that they've lost so far were potentially winnable if they had managed to make a few
Right.
plays, right? Both games in the Cubs series, we discussed those in our last show. And then this game today, we mentioned earlier, there were a couple of missed plays in that first inning with Merrill Kelly on the mound. Theoretically, that's 2 runs that could have come off the board if Gurriel makes that play in left, if Alec Thomas makes that play in center. And it didn't look like those plays were going to matter much, but then Geraldo Perdomo hits this grand slam, and you're kind of looking in the rearview mirror a little bit.
Well, if they play perfect baseball, Jesse, then they'll be undefeated.
Yeah. That's a fair point. That's a fair point. I guess, yeah, I guess my point being that I don't know, usually over the course of a season, a decent number of your losses are just games where you just got clearly outperformed by the other team, right? So far, the
Sure.
Diamondbacks are 4-3, and all 3 of those losses, you could at least, yes, admittedly, no team is going to play perfect every single time out. So we're kind of nitpicking here, but something that's uncharacteristic for the Diamondbacks for sure, given how good they've been in this regard the past few years.
I'm just teasing you, but in this situation, clearly the defense has been more shaky than we're used to. It's been taking turns. Sometimes it's Naylor, sometimes it's the outfield. Perdomo had some rough games in the Chicago series. They've all kind of been taking. Gino had that big throwing error. They've all taken turns going around the diamond, kind of messing up. So hopefully, it's just they'll get it out of their system and everybody will settle down. I think when there's a lot of expectations on them, they might tighten up in those situations just a little. And as we go forward, those expectations will kind of melt away and they just get into the routine of the season. And I think it's going to be better. But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, there's no replacing Christian Walker when it comes to defense. He's the best defensive first baseman I've ever seen since Keith Hernandez.
Hmm.
And before Keith Hernandez, I'm too young to remember anybody that was remotely that good. So it's not fair to expect Naylor to be that good, and every time he makes a mistake, we're going to harp on it. But the truth is that if he's anywhere near league average, if these mistakes don't become endemic, then they'll be fine.
Another note we had from this series, actually from the game today, is that Ryan Nelson threw 2 1/3 innings tonight, 33 pitches. He was pretty good. Didn't allow a run, had a couple of strikeouts, but I know this was something that you noticed, that Ryan Nelson, is
Yeah.
the Diamondbacks try to potentially keep him available. At least we sort of thought that they were trying to keep him available to maybe turn back into a starter at some point here. With a 33 pitch outing, you're not exactly going in the right direction there.
Yeah, it was 50 pitches last time, 33 this time. How many games would it take for him to get back to actually being able to start a game and give you 85, 90 pitches? We're
Right.
talking at least three outings to actually get stretched out. So as of right now, I do not consider Ryan Nelson stretched out as a starter. Now, Torey Lovello may, or the coaching staff may, but it doesn't look like it to me. And we've been down this road so many times where we're going to keep him stretched out, and then they can't do it. And then they end up shortening him up, but then they need him as a starter or want him to continue to be a starter, and they start bouncing back and forth. And we've heard them say before that they're not going to do that again, but they appear that they may be doing it again. And we're going to watch it really closely. And this one we don't get to say we're second guessing. If he gets shortened up any further than this and doesn't start getting stretched back out, and then ultimately goes down to Reno to stretch back out again, well, then they're doing it again. So we'll have to see what happens. But Kevin Ginkel eventually is going to come back. Dre Jameson's probably going to be promoted at some point. They're going to want to bring up another short reliever. I think in the not too distant future. So we'll see what happens with Ryan Nelson. But it would not surprise me if they send him down to get lengthened out again. So watch how many pitches he throws in the next one.
Hmm.
If it's less than 40, then he's no longer close to a starter's workload.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to monitor for sure. I know Nelson going 33 pitches today is not exactly setting himself up for a starter's workload moving forward. Today was an interesting case in particular because it wasn't like the Diamondbacks had to remove him from the game. Like, admittedly, it is challenging to keep a guy in your bullpen stretched out. We've talked, certainly talked about that in spring training and whatnot. Like, that's just a really difficult thing to do in general. Game situations are unpredictable with how much you're going to need your long reliever in the first couple weeks of the season. But this was a situation where Torey Lovello went to Jalen Beeks to face, I believe it was Trent Grisham was the first hitter due up for the Yankees in that inning. I think it was the seventh. And he probably could have left Ryan Nelson in the game and kept him a little bit more stretched out than he did. So I guess the thinking from Torey's standpoint is maybe that we would rather go to, I guess, Beeks and then Shelby Miller ultimately came in as well. Diamondbacks felt better about some of those guys than just sticking with Ryan Nelson with the game getting a little closer.
Sure, Torrey's trying to win a ball game. I mean, at the end of the day, that's his responsibility. That's what he has to try to do, is try to win the game. So he can't consider everything. That's some of these things are up to the front office to work out too. He's trying to win games with the roster he has.
The Diamondbacks signed another extension, Jack, which apparently is something that happens on a weekly basis now, I guess. I don't know who it'll be next week, but it feels like it's going to be someone. And this one was not really something that I saw coming. Ketel Marte, who is already under team control through 2028, Diamondbacks signed him just a couple, I guess it was made official on Wednesday, a 6-year, $116.5 million extension that starts in 2025, so starts this season, goes to 2030, and then has a player option at $11.5 million in addition to that for 2031, which would be Ketel's age 37 season. Jack, I don't know if anyone can be too upset about extending a player who was top 3 in MVP voting last year. Like, Ketel is a very, very good baseball player. But at the same time, at least for me, this felt a little odd. Like, you don't see players get extended all that much when they're already under team control for, I guess it's really 3 more seasons after this one, basically 4 more seasons. And obviously, Ketel is not a pre-arb player. You know, we've seen plenty of extensions with guys who are super young where you control them for a number of years. But Ketel's in a different situation. Like, he's sort of entering, it's kind of on approaching the wrong side of 30. And so yeah, you kind of wonder what the future holds there. It's not, doesn't strike me as a clearly bad move by any means. Ketel is a great player, but a bit of an unexpected move, at least from my standpoint.
My initial reaction was not overly positive. My thought process was, why? They already had him under control through 27, 28 if they wanted, right? So I didn't see why they needed to do that. But when more details came out, the fact that it's restructured, so it gives Mike Hazen an extra $5 million to play with this year, and some extra money next year, and there's money deferred, then it starts to make sense because they're really trying to win in this window. So if they need to make a deadline move, they have some money coming in. It speaks a lot to Ketel's willingness to say, all right, I'll take less upfront and to do this deal. I want to be here the rest of my career. I mean, that's what he said
Right.
very clearly, both in words and in action. It's very admirable, that both sides were able to think of each other's wants and needs and come to an agreement here. But ultimately, Mike also said, hey, if he doesn't stick at second base through his mid-30s, that's fine. We think he's going to earn his contract as a hitter. He's a good enough hitter to earn the deal, even if he's not able to stay at second base. Although they believe he will, if he doesn't, so what? He can hit, and that's the deal. I mean, I think it's fine. I think it gives him a better chance in the next 2 years, 3 years. Mike made the point really clear. You just don't get the opportunity to sign players of this caliber if you don't move quickly enough. And he's one of the elite hitters in the league, and you're not going to get to sign that guy, even if you wanted to, for his age 32, 33, 34 seasons. He would be priced out of market. So it works. It works for them. I'm not really worried about it anymore. I admit my initial reaction was negative, but when presented with new information, one needs to be willing to reconsider their position, and I did so.
So this is Ketel's age 31 season currently. He's currently 31 years old. So yeah, you're talking about a situation where you already had Ketel under team control through 2028. So that would be his age 34 season. So the Diamondbacks are basically guaranteeing that club option is exercised, obviously, and then you're guaranteeing 2 years beyond that. So you went from age 34 to age 36 in that way. And then you have that player option for age 37. So yeah, Ketel's an interesting case in that it is not as if it's not as if we're wondering about his ability to stay at second because he's poor at the position. Like, Ketel was really good defensively last year. I guess it's more of just, at least from my standpoint, it's more of a durability question, right? Like, obviously Ketel, his injury track record is a little bit spotty, right? He's certainly missed time here and there. We know about the back issues that have popped up from time to time. You wonder what that might look like in the future. But this isn't a player who's currently, average, below average at his position. You're wondering what it'll look like a few years from now. His ability to play second still seems to be pretty solid, and it's not all that hard to imagine him continuing in that for a few years. It's just, at least for me, Jack, just like a durability question of, right now, as they're kind of being careful with him, in a few years, does that take the form of like, okay, it's better to just have him DH, or maybe he moves to first base at some point. Maybe that could be a possibility. I'm very, very curious to see how this plays out.
I remember watching him dive for a ball, one of the first games or two, and he got up and he kind of arched his back funny and then bent over and stretched it out, and you could see him grab his back a little bit. And then it was over. Like, that was it. You didn't see anything else. And I asked Tori about it, and then he kind of chuckled and he said, "Yeah, I watch him really closely too." So that really tells you all you need to know. Like everybody's got their eyes on that. I'm not worried about him. I mean, hamstring injuries hit him up pretty hard for a couple of years. I think he's figured out how to avoid those going forward. The back issue is something that's probably going to continue to recur for him from time to time. I mean, I think that was the root cause for him having to sit out a game the last week of the season, right?
Right.
So I worry about it a little bit from that perspective, but back injuries are power sapping injuries. Every time you see from Don Mattingly to Todd Helton, these guys they hurt their backs, and all of a sudden they went from 35 homer guys to 12, 14 homer guys. So you wouldn't want to see that, and that's the biggest risk for me
Mm.
is just that the back injury causes him to lose some of that power because to earn those dollars as a hitter, the power has to stick around. He doesn't have to hit 36 homers, but he's got to hit 20, 25 with his batting average and so forth.
I will say that, despite the obvious risks that come with a contract like this, I don't think they're enormous risks necessarily. Like again, Ketel's an amazing player, but there is some risk, and I think there's still something to be said for the fact that you probably just made Ketel Marte a Diamondback for life, right? Like there's at least a
Yes.
pretty decent chance that this is going to be the last contract that he signs in Major League Baseball, right? It goes through his age 37 season. We are seeing contracts signed for guys like well into their 40s at this point, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure those are going to necessarily end well. So yeah, I think it's very possible that this is the last deal that Ketel signs. And when the dust settles, like we don't know what these next few years are going to look like, but when the dust settles, Ketel Marte is probably going to go down as one of the best Diamondbacks position players that we've ever seen, right? I mean, this is a guy who's already put up over 30 WAR in his career. Who knows what that number could get to if he puts up a few more seasons like he did last year, right? That was a 7 WAR season that he had in 2024. So we'll see what it looks like, but maybe Ketel's a 50 WAR player. Like maybe he's, a legitimate candidate on a Hall of Fame ballot someday. I think we're certainly getting ahead of ourselves with entertaining that conversation too much, but there's something to be said for keeping a player in Arizona for a long period of time and a very, very good player at that.
Yep. Well, it would be great for these guys if they won. They better win because they just extended all of them. So this core is the core.
So my next question, naturally, Jack, is who gets extended next week, right? Like we got to keep this trend is going to continue, I'm sure.
Well, I'm sure they'd love to be able to extend Gabby. I don't know if they can. I'm not quite sure what's happening there. I kind of
Sure.
have the sense like they must have had talks about it, and just the way Mike always describes how these conversations go, um, it seems a little odd to all of us that Gabby's not on that list yet. But there are reasons why. Could be from his side, could be from their side. Just what the expectations are. Obviously, they haven't been able to meet on that yet, but maybe they will. Maybe Gabby will look around and say, you know what? I see what these guys are doing. I want that too.
I think that's something that Nick Picoro, our friend from the Arizona Republic, reported at one point that the Diamondbacks did have conversations with Gabby Moreno's camp last spring. I think like sort of entering into last season. Obviously, it didn't materialize. We don't know exactly why. But yeah, he's probably the one other candidate on the team that is pretty obvious. Like this is a potential building block of your team, right? There's some other young
Right.
players who certainly have made contributions and could be big factors in the future. But Gabby is clearly, on a consistent basis ever since he came in the majors, you've kind of had a good sense of the kind of player he would be. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Maybe Ketel's the last one. He is if I'm not mistaken, Jack, the fourth Diamondback to sign an extension here over the last couple months. We had Geraldo Perdomo, we had
Right.
Justin Martinez, we had Brandon Pfaadt, and then we had Ketel Marte. So it's been quite a few months here on that front for this team.
Thank you for listing them off and not putting me on the spot and making me do it.
Yeah, admittedly a little hard, a little difficult to keep track of at the pace that they're currently going. To finish things up in this show, we want to take a quick look at the upcoming series for the Diamondbacks as they travel to Washington, D.C. to take on the Washington Nationals. Jack, the Washington Nationals are not a particularly good baseball team. They are 1-5 to start the season. Probably one of the worst teams in the National League. Put them in the same sort of class as the Marlins and the Rockies. They're maybe a little bit better than the Marlins and the Rockies, but not a team that I'm really expecting to contend this year. The Diamondbacks won't see Mackenzie Gore this weekend. He was very, very good in his first start of the year for the Nationals, so that certainly is a big help. You can see here on your screen the Nationals do have a few players, despite their slow start, who have swung a hot bat so far this year. Nathaniel Lowe, someone they acquired this offseason, has a 1,012 OPS so far in his first few games. He's off to a hot start. CJ Abrams, a guy who's been a fixture in this lineup for a while, is off to a hot start with a 908 OPS. And then Keibert Ruiz, they're a young catcher, I guess. I still view Keibert Ruiz as being a young catcher. I guess he's probably like mid upper 20s at this point. But he's hitting 381 with an 1149 OPS. So there are some hot hitters here to be aware of. But again, you're talking about 6 games. So none of those numbers really mean much of anything.
They're due. They're 1-5.
It's one way to look at it. Yeah.
They're 1-5. They're a better team than that. They lost by 3 runs, 2 runs, 2 runs, and getting swept by the Blue Jays. They're a young team that a lot of people were kind of a fashionable pick to exceed expectations this year. And so far, they've fallen well short of that. But I wouldn't just put them quite in the same category. I think they're better than the Marlins. I still
That's
think
fair.
that I think that this is a team that could easily win like 75 to high 70s games. It be on the strength of a young core getting better. I mean, James Wood's a good ball player. He's just off to a slow start. Some of their pitchers are pretty good. I mean, they've got Jake Irvin, Mitchell Parker, starting in this series. I think those guys aren't such bad pitchers. Mike
No.
Soroka is a hard luck case. I mean, we're going to see him. I mean, the D-backs should win this series. I mean, between Brandon Pfaadt, Eduardo Rodriguez, and Corbin Burnes, you should be winning 2 of those games. There's no doubt about it. But I just wouldn't be shocked if it's a little bit tougher to win this series than it might look like on the surface on paper.
Pitching matchups, you mentioned the guys on the National side. It's Brandon Pfaadt against Jake Irvin, and then the Saturday game is Eduardo Rodriguez against Mitchell Parker, lefty over there for the Nationals. And then in the finale, it's Mike Soroka against Corbin Burnes, who will make his second appearance as a member of the Arizona Diamondbacks. So Diamondbacks have played pretty well against the Nationals of late. I believe they were 5-1 against the Nationals a season ago. But you're right. I shouldn't put this team in the same category as the Marlins and the Rockies. They're clearly there's more talent here than both of those teams. But I guess I would also say like I have the Nationals probably being closer to the Marlins than the other 3 teams in that division. Like it's a little hard for me to picture the Nationals really contending for anything this season. But you're right. Maybe they're due, Jack. They're 1-5 to start. They're certainly a better team than that record shows. So we'll see what happens this weekend.
Well, when I look at a team like this and I think, oh, they could go up to 75, 78 wins. To me, that's a team that's improving from a bad, 98, 100 loss team to, oh, okay, they're just 7 or 8 or 10 games under 500. That kind of makes them pests. That makes them difficult. They're not just pushovers. It's baseball. Flip a coin. Who's going to win? That's my thought process there. I think that with their young core, it kind of makes me think of the 2022 Diamondbacks.
Right. Sure. I had the exact same thought.
Yeah.
They also have, of course, a young player named Dylan Cruz, who has gotten off to a good start this year, but a big name prospect player former big name
Right.
prospect, a player who could emerge as one of the better young hitters in the game before too long. So there is an interesting collection of talent here. Certainly, not an easy opponent by any means. Anytime you're playing a series on the road, it's going to be somewhat challenging. So that's what the Diamondbacks have up next. It will be interesting to see how the weekend unfolds if the Diamondbacks are able to build on their series win against the Yankees and potentially make this positive road trip. Maybe they're able to go 4-2 with another series win. Maybe they can even go 5-1 if they find a way to sweep the Nationals this weekend. But yeah, any other thoughts here, Jack, before we say goodbye?
Escape from New York. Happy to get out of there with a series victory and on to Washington.
There you go. Well, thank you all once again for being with us. We really appreciate you hopping on here with us on this journey as we get Snakes territory off the ground. If you haven't already, it would really mean a lot to us if you would rate and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. That really does wonders for us here as we're early in the process. Be sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel as well. You can find us at Snakes Territory if you haven't done that already. Also, hitting like on this video helps us a lot. The YouTube algorithm overlords will very much appreciate that if you do. And also drop a comment. Let us know what you think of the show, what you think of the Ketel Marte extension. We'd love to hear your thoughts and interact with you. Try to do a better job this time around of responding to comments as well. I know I didn't get around to that with our last show, but planning to do that as much as possible moving forward. You can find both of us on social media. I am at Jesse N. Friedman over on X. Jack is at ShoeWizard59. Jack, as I mentioned from the top of the show, does a great job covering the Diamondbacks over at Arizona Diamondbacks on SI. Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, that's si.com/MLB/Diamondbacks. That's how people find you.
That's how they find us.
There we
Myself
go.
and the other four writers that helped me out over there.
You guys do great work over there, covering any and all possible angles surrounding this baseball team that you can imagine. So be sure to check that out on the regular if you haven't been doing that already. But thank you again for joining us here in the second episode. We're expecting to have another episode sometime this weekend, and then hopefully we'll find a regular rhythm here at some point. We'll certainly let you in on our plans. Our plan is to have three shows every single week. The exact dates and times and whatnot is a little bit fluid at this point, but we'll certainly keep you in the loop on that front. But yeah, be sure to follow us on all the channels. We appreciate your time once again, and we'll see you back here on Snakes Territory very, very soon.